Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. I'm your host, Charles Long. With me, as always, my co-host, editor, producer, co-pilot, and gunner, Jacob Gloth. We are here to do what we do every single week, which is pitch a brand new televisual series for you to imagine and hope that one day it gets made. Even though it probably won't, unless we get hired by Warner Brothers, because they are just setting everything on fire over there at Warner Brothers. And
I hear that NBC Universal wants to buy them.
Warner
Brothers?
Which
is crazy.
Really? That is crazy. Warner Brothers. Wow.
Get bought by NBC Universal.
That would be awesome. And then they're bought by Apple. And then it's Apple versus Netflix and Amazon. And then Amazon buys Netflix. And then it's Apple versus Amazon. And then we're like, all right, this is the end of...
Well, NBC Universal's owned by, like, Comcast or something, right?
Oh, God, Comcast.
So I think they might be bigger than Apple.
Comcast is evil, though. All right. We should probably start talking about the show.
What's your show, Charles?
It is my show. It's a horror show. I wanted to make a horror show because I feel like we haven't done that since Splatterpunk, which I enjoyed making, Splatterpunk. And so I was like, well, what horror stuff can we do? Can we do like aliens, alien horror, or maybe body snatchers, or like maybe like old-timey folk horror, gothic horror? And I was like, you know what?
Oh.
I don't want to do any of that stuff. I want to do all of it.
Oh.
So we're going to make an anthology horror show. We're going to do a premiere television hour-long episodes for our anthology horror show, right? Right now.
It's like Black Mirror, but not at all.
It's like Black Mirror, but spookier. And I'm not going to say better written, because it's not going to be. Because Black Mirror, well, at least the first couple of seasons of Black Mirror are really well written. It's going to be less...
Better written than some of the seasons of Black Mirror.
Yeah, but we're not going to be like, hey, your phones are evil. That's not what we're going to be about. Because that's a lot of what Black Mirror...
It's not sci-fi.
It's not, well, so one of them is, but that's besides the point. So,
it's only sci-fi sometimes.
It's only sci-fi sometimes. That's actually one of the fun things, because I've got three...
It's the name of the show, actually.
I've got 3 episodes planned out, right? 3 hour, long episodes. The first one takes place in 2080. The second one takes place in 1980, and the third one takes place in 1880, right? Just to give you we've got 3 centuries of horror, all right? And
let me guess. 1880 vampires. 1980 Reagan is a zombie. 2080 Reagan's a zombie again.
But he's still a zombie. No. Vampires might be good, but no, that's not what we're doing. And I've got a title for the show. I know usually I don't have titles, and
I was afraid.
Yeah. Because I came up with a bunch of names, ideas like Abandoned Hope, or Inner Terror, or Friendly Death, and I was like, none of those are really jumping out at me, right? But the
on the mark.
One that I liked a lot was Hope in the Rear View. That's the title.
Oh.
Which I think is fun.
Like Hitchcock's Rear View.
Exactly. I wasn't thinking about that.
What's the I don't remember.
There's a lot. Vertigo?
Something Rear View.
Vertigo? Are you talking about Vertigo? The Birds?
No, there's a Hitchcock
movie. No, I know.
Rear View.
What's it called?
Rear View Window.
Rear View Window. Yeah, it's where the guy's stuck and he's got a broken leg and he sees a murder. I think that's
maybe it's just Rear Window.
Yeah, it's called Rear Window.
Remember.
You're right. It's Rear Window. You're the bigger film buff out of the two of us. It's been determined.
Grace Kelly's in it.
Oh.
That's about my extent of Rear View Window knowledge.
Jimmy Kimmel's in it?
I don't think so.
No, he's not. So, on a small isolated mining facility next to Jupiter in the year 2080, we have 3 people who are working as engineers, basically the janitors of space. They just make sure that everything keeps working so that this mining corporation can continue to siphon off energy from the gas giant Jupiter, right? So our 3 characters, their names are Tyler, Hendrix, and Bon, right?
Bon.
My
name's Bon. Bill Bon.
And I kind of I wanted to make I didn't want them to just be 3 dudes in space because that feels like overdone. So we can have Bond be a lady. We can have Bond be a.
Oh, you're gonna retcon it now?
I'm not retconning it. I'm just leaving it open. Or Bond be a not a gender fluid individual, non-binary, And so they're on the ship. They're on this mining facility. Tyler, Bond, and Hendrix, and they're just playing cards, having a conversation. This is a show where the dialogue is going to be important. They're going to be talking about witty stuff. They're going to be giving you a little bit of background into each of the characters into the world. Yeah, I love witty stuff because I can say that there's going to be witty stuff, but I don't actually have to write anything.
Oh,
but then there's this mysterious power surge. Everything in the facility turns off for 10 seconds, and then it all turns back on.
That's a long time.
And they're like, whoa, that was scary. We don't know what that is. And then they, check everything, and all of the systems appear to be normal, right?
That's good.
So they're just like,
everything's normal.
All right, that's cool. We're all good. We're burning through oxygen a bit faster than we were.
Just a weird coincidence.
Yeah, it's a weird space coincidence. We're burning through oxygen a bit faster, but
that's funny. They call everything space things. Like, that was a space synonym. That was a space coincidence.
That was a space rock. Oh, that's what you call a space rock. You call it a space rock.
It's just a rock.
That's just a rock. It's not from space. It's from Earth. I brought it here.
It's just a rock.
It's a rock, and it's just
my pet Rocky.
It's Dwayne the Rock Johnson floating in space, dead. He's frozen.
Yeah.
When he died, he wanted to have his body launched into space, and they kept his word. And so they're burning through a bit more oxygen than normal. But they just chalk that up to they're all nervous, their systems are coming back online, so things are taking a little bit of time to rejigger and make sure that everything works properly. So they're like, okay, whatever. And they go about their duties on this mining facility, just making sure that the outside of the ship is, well maintained and still in working order, that everything inside is in working order, that they're getting all their energy and right. And then just slowly but surely, things start to go wrong.
Oh. I hate when things go wrong.
Routine systems keep getting disabled or restarted. Paranoia and suspicion take over the crew as they become more and more aware that they are no longer alone on this facility.
Is this Among Us?
This is not Among Us.
Is that what this is?
I was not doing Among Us.
I hope not.
I should have.
I'll get you.
Now that I'm thinking about it, it's a little bit like Among Us, but it's not Among Us.
Oh my god.
They're on space and there's a saboteur, basically. But besides that, there's no more Among Us. No more. They all are normal.
If the saboteur is a monster, it's gonna eat them, stab them, and kill them. It's
actually not a monster. We're gonna make it look throughout the episode as if it's a monster. It's as if it's this weird, otherworldly alien being, right? It's gonna be leaving.
But it's really Bond.
It's gonna be no. It's not. It's not really Bond. That's a different. It's a different twist. But there's gonna be like a slime trail that maybe gets left behind, or like, organic fluids that they don't recognize that are being, on places that they wouldn't expect. So they eventually realize that there's something on the ship with them, and they're not sure what, but they're like, it is not friendly. We know that. It doesn't want anything to do with us. It might want to kill us, and it seems to have...
Can we have a line at one point during the show where a character's just like, there's something here. There's something among us.
Okay, we can have one Among Us
line.
Cut
to credits.
Cut to credits. No episode. No conclusion.
That will appease the internet. The internet will like that, or they'll also hate it. So maybe don't put it in. I don't know.
Maybe we'll.
It's hard to understand what the internet will like and not like.
It really is, isn't it? Who would have thought that Big Chungus would be the biggest thing to ever exist? So much so that Warner Brothers, a failing company, is putting it in their Smash Bros. Clone. And yet, I can't think of another thing, an internet thing that failed. Think of an internet thing that failed. Crazy Frog.
You.
Me.
Anyway,
Us, the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. Another internet failure. And that's okay. We're happy about it. But they're going around the ship, and they're doing clues, discovering what's going on. And I've got a list of scares that will happen throughout the episode, because it's a horror. This is a horror anthology, so there's not going to be as much story.
So you get scared.
It's just got to be scares. So we've got an astronaut, right? One of the technicians, let's say Hendrix. His job is he goes out onto the outside of the ship, and he does repairs. And just while he's repairing, doing routine things, whatever, his oxygen tube that connects him to the ship begins to fill with this like bloody looking fluid, like this deep red fluid that just begins like being siphoned into his suit and is like slowly filling up his suit and his mask, and he begins like sputtering and spitting it out. It's like this really intense, horrifying scene of him like slowly drowning in space until maybe he's saved, maybe he's not. We can decide. But let's say he's saved.
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson from earlier breaks out of the ice. Saves him.
I'm Black Adam, and then he shoots him with lightning. Like
kills him.
Like Palpatine. Like Senator Palpatine. But yeah, he saves him. He's saved by Bon and Tyler. Dragged back onto the ship, but he's,
Johnson is?
No, he's dead. They shot him with a harpoon gun, like he was the shark from Jaws.
Oh, damn.
And he swims away. But they've got a little like tube attached to the harpoon so that they can keep an eye on him. But they pull him back on the ship and they resuscitate him, but he's knocked out. He's in the med bay. He's being worked on by a robot because it's the future and none of them are fucking doctors. And he's incapacitated, right? And then Tyler and Bon are like, well, we need to continue our work. And Bon, who's the engine specialist, he goes down and he starts working on the engine, making sure that everything is in working order, and they had to shut it down so that he could work on inside of it. And as he's, working, he hears like and he realizes, oh shit, the engine's turning on. And so he's in this big, bulky anti-radiation suit because the engine is powered by plutonium. Or, some sort of radioactive metal, of course, because metal, it's not a metal. Radioactive element, because, of course, it's the future. And so he's got to, like, clunkily make his way through the engine, maybe he trips, drops his stuff, he's, it's a close call. And just as he's about to escape, the engine blasts on, turns on, and about half of his body is covered in scars. Or covered in burns, right? And so Tyler gets him on the med bay, gets him on a a cot. He brings him back to the med bay. It's not what it's called, but it's called something else. Whatever they put, a stretcher. He puts him on a space stretcher, and he brings him to the med bay, and he finds that Hendrix has had his throat ripped out. Not cut, not slit with a knife, but ripped out like an animal attacked him. Right? So he's dead. Bon is alive, but he's in critical condition. So he's, being wrapped up and taken care of by these robots, but he's still conscious. He's still able to talk. And so he's just, he's trying to help, but he's also severely injured. And then there's this, intense scene of Tyler. He's walking around the ship. He's got like a wrench, he's got a flashlight. As you do in spaceship horror, he's just walking around. It's like, what's going on? What's happening here? Like a weird, lanky, skinny, pale-looking man with huge, wide eyes and like barely any hair. His face is, covered in scraggly,
Looks like Gollum.
Yeah. He's got like 6 teeth and they're all like sharpened and gnarly. He jumps out and he attacks him. He starts like scratching him. Tyler knocks him away with the the wrench. Is able to get back into the main section of the ship where Bon is recovering, and he, informs him, that didn't look like any sort of fucking alien I've ever seen. That looked like a man. And then they, they do some diagnostics, run on the ship. Bond does, because Tyler's not as much of a computer whiz. But Bond does some diagnostics on the ship, finds out that there's this tiny, like, almost imperceptibly small escape capsule that has docked with the ship. It didn't dock on, like, a docking bay. It, attached itself to the ship. And then the person who was in the escape pod crawls out and crawled into the ship, right? Without them noticing. And Tyler's like, whoa, that would take an incredibly, incredible knowledge of, like, space and, like, the, building structures of spaceships to figure out how to get into a ship without being, recognized, without being heard, and without, depressurizing the entire thing. And they look a little closer, and it's a CCCP escape capsule, right? So this is when they realize that this guy, the person who is on the ship with them, is a crazed cosmonaut who has been, or maybe not a cosmonaut, maybe he's the son of a cosmonaut, just because it's, 100 years after the fall of the Berlin Wall and the destruction of Soviet Union. But he is a crazed Russian scientist who's been living out in space by himself for years, decades, and he's basically lost everything.
How has he survived?
Yeah, he's survived by living on this abandoned Soviet Union space station, right? But we're not gonna say that. We gotta keep it a little mysterious, so they just know that he's a crazed cosmonaut and he's on their ship now, and they don't know what to do. And so it's the next, we're getting to the final 20 minutes of the episode, right? So then the next, the next, like, 10 minutes are them, like, coming up, they're making a plan, they're figuring it out, and we'll occasionally just cut to the cosmonaut, and he's, like, discovering the, inner workings of the ship. He's figuring it out, because they're trapped inside the medbay. And so he's, like, got basically free run of the whole ship. And just as, like, all our boys, Tyler and Bond, they've, like, suited themselves up. Bond has, like, kitted himself out with this, like, robotic exoskeleton sort of thing to cut for his, burned limbs so that he can walk around and fight and stuff. That he's kind of cobbled together out of the mechanical and, like, medical equipment that he's got lying around. Right, he's able to build himself this little exoskeleton suit, and just as they're about to bust through the door, they're gonna find this cosmonaut, and they're gonna send him off to hell for their buddy Hendrix. Right, they're gonna go. Just as they do that, they realize that the cosmonaut has found his way onto the bridge and has jettisoned, or is about to jettison, every piece of the ship that is considered quote unquote non-essential, which includes the medical bay. And so just as they're about to make their way, into just as they're about to, do a protagonist thing and, like, bust in and kill the bad guy and win and be safe and happy, right? They're all sucked out into space. And they just watch this cosmonaut, watching them, and he's, like, got this sort of animalistic, just, like, he understands the space stuff, he knows all the science, but, like, humanity is basically another species to him at this point. And so he's got this kind of crazed curiosity going across his face as we watch Bond and Tyler slowly asphyxiate in space, and they're like, rage and anger and disappointment is all that they can think of and feel, just as they slowly freeze and turn into obsidian, basically, just these rocks, these statues of hate that they have become. And that's the end, is the cosmonaut just drifting off into space to find more people to eat and stuff. So yeah, that's the end of the first episode.
I didn't think I figured it was you, that was gonna happen.
What, that the cosmonaut would win?
You'd just have the winner be the villain.
Yeah, that's kind of the episode. That's kind of the plan with all of these episodes. Just because I think happy endings and horror don't go well together. I don't think that they, if there's a horror movie, it shouldn't have a happy ending. It even if the ending has, you know, the characters get away, it should be bittersweet. It should be, you know.
Well, that's the point. It should be bittersweet, not just bitter.
But I'm okay with this bitter.
Like, you get one person makes it out alive. That's the idea.
Yeah. Maybe we could have a little thing where Bond, his exoskeleton, has, like, some oxygen reserves to it. And so he's able to, like,
survive, but he's just watching the thing leave.
Yeah, he's able to survive, but he's, like, you know, he watches his friend, you know, suffocate to death next to him. And then he watches this, like, crazed lunatic leave off with his ship. And he's like, I will fucking kill you. You know, and he's being driven solely by hate. And that's what's keeping him alive, along with all of the space technology. Because we could defo do a second episode to that episode. But that's not what we have right here. Right here...
Well, you could have, I don't know how you would do this from what happened in your episode, but it would be a cool final shot of, like, you know, we have some classic line where he's like, see you in hell, you goddamn communist, and then he blows up, like, he put explosives in that part of the ship at some point.
Blows it up, kills himself.
Kills the cosmonaut. And he's just alive in the exosuit, like, floating in space.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, he's probably going to die eventually.
But I think it would be good if the cosmonaut got away and he survived in the exosuit, and then we could have a follow-up episode second season that was him getting rescued and then, like, being treated for all of his, like, horrific wounds and nobody believing him because he's like, this is the year 2080, dude. No, there's no fucking cosmonauts out, right? And then we could, like, reveal more about the mystery of how this cosmonaut survived and where he's been for the past fucking 100 years.
And then you have a reverse horror story where the guy in the exosuit has now, like, melded to the exosuit, and he's some weird, like, mechanism monster dude, and he's after the cosmonaut. And
he's gonna kill the cosmonaut.
And the cosmonaut is, like, you know, he's, like, reformed now because he finally, you know, he landed in society and they helped fix him.
Yeah. Ooh, that could be fun. There you go. Season 2, Episode 1. We got it figured out.
The Cosmonauts Return.
Cosmonauts Return. That's a good name for an episode. But the next episode I've written down is it's a little bit less. The villain is much less apparent, right? Because I wanted to do, like, a bit more of an Eldritch kind of The Mist style Lovecraftian horror situation in this. So it's 1980. We're trapped in a London apartment complex because I wanted it to also be a bit like what was it called, Defend the Block or whatever, that John Boyega movie with aliens. That's where I kind of got the inspiration for this one. But it's a mysterious force has trapped a bunch of co-heads in their drug dealer's apartment. Right? That's our setup.
Co-heads.
I said co-heads.
You said co-heads.
Oh, well then.
They got co-heads.
They got co-heads. It's two people, four heads. Bing, bang, boom.
Mm-hmm.
No.
That's a great sitcom right there. Two people, four heads.
Two people, four heads.
Make it.
That's all right. We need to save this for episode 120 next week.
Mm-hmm.
But a mysterious force. So it's basically, you know, it's gonna be described as like this black mist sort of situation. This sort of horror that fills you with this sort of being that fills you with dread and horror whenever you leave the building or leave the room, right? So they're all trapped in this one apartment. The hallways are a dead zone. And I would like this to be demonstrated by having whenever they leave the apartment and go into the hallway to trying to escape, it becomes animated. So I think that would be cool, you know? Because it's live action, and then when they go in the hallway, it'll be animated, so that we know that it's like this is a different world, basically. That's kind of the feeling I want to get in. So we've got our four co-eds. I said co-heads that time. Our four co-eds are Kevin, Samantha, Henry, and Jess, right? We've got 2 boys, 2 girls. And our creepy drug dealer is Sneaky Dale. So the episode starts with Kevin and Samantha convincing Henry and Jess to come with them to pick up, a bag of weed or whatever from their, let's just say a bag of weed, because any other drug is like, it makes it weird. Not weird, but it makes it, different. But they're going up to pick up a bag of weed from their guy, Dale. Sneaky Dale, right?
Dale.
And they show up at his apartment, and he's got like the classic drug dealer setup. He's got a beanbag chair and a bunch of tapestries everywhere, incense burning. He's got like long dreadlocks and a pony and a bandana and a flavor saver chin strap sort of situation. And he's a real...
He's got an M16 assault rifle and a CCP flag.
Yeah, exactly.
And a spaceship in his backyard. Classic drug dealers.
Classic drug dealer setup. Spaceships, guns, CCP, triple CP.
CCP. No, I was going for the Chinese Communist Party.
Oh, yeah. Different C.
One less C.
Yeah.
One different country.
And if you take a C away from that, it's a felony. So it's
okay.
Kevin and Samantha, and they're like, come on, we're going to pick up. And Henry and Jess are like, all right, cool. They show up, and Sneaky Dale is creeping hard on Jess. Like, he's never met her before. He's met Samantha before, and he knows that she's not going to take any of that shit. But he's being a real creep. He's being a kind of a bad guy. Like, nothing illegal yet, besides the drug dealing, of course. Nothing, like, illegal or criminal, but just kind of gross. And so they're like, all right, come on, let's get the drugs and get out of here as fast as possible, right? And then, they get the drugs, and then Kevin is like, all right, I'm gonna, go down, smoke a cigarette. You guys come down when you've got everything. And so Kevin goes down, and as he's walking to the elevator, he gets like this horrible fright. He gets this feeling of just intense fear. And he runs back in. He's like, what the fuck is going... There's something in the hallway. And Dale is like, what? What the fuck are you talking about? He goes out into the hallway. He also, like, receives this intense feeling of fear. And eventually everyone, they stick their head out. They get this feeling of fear, of terror. And they see something. Not something explicit, but just something out of the corner of their eye that they can't quite explain. Right? And so they stay in. They're like, oh shit, I don't know what are we gonna do? We can't call the cops. A, because we're buying drugs. B, because it's the 1980s and we only have a landline that's been cut. And C, because that would make a very uninteresting episode of television. And so, they're like, oh well, let's just wait it out. We'll wait it out. Let's see what happens. We wait here till morning, right? And so the first hour or so. First couple of hours goes by. They're hanging out. Sneaky Dale, he's taking the hint. He's still being a little bit of a creep, but he's not as so much talking to Jess as he was, just because it's like, A, she's obviously not into it, and B, we're trapped in here. I don't really want to make, people mad at me right now, because there's 4 of them and 1 of me. And so they're like, maybe they're smoking some weed, maybe they're watching a movie or whatever. They're just trying to take their minds off of it. And then
yeah.
Kevin's like, well, I gotta use the restroom. And he goes to the restroom, and he's
classic Kevin.
Classic Kev. He's taking a piss, he's doing that stuff, and he hears like the creaking of the pipes. He's like, what's creaking? And the creaking gets louder and louder and louder until the pipes start ripping themselves out of the walls, right? They become sentient. They start attacking him, wrapping themselves around his neck and,
oh God,
taking over. And they're ripping him apart. They're filling his chest with pipes and plumbing and stuff.
He's getting piped.
He's getting piped. And he's like, ah. And he, the pipes cover his mouth. They can't hear him screaming, and it goes about like 30 minutes pass, and Samantha's like, why the fuck is Kevin in the bathroom still? Like, is he having another one of his episodes? So she goes in there, finds him. He's become this sort of pipe cyborg. You know, he's become this horrible mesh of flesh and metal, and he's screaming in pain, you know. His eyes have become, like, maybe we replace his eyes with the faucets, right, or something fun like that. And he's just in horrible pain at all times, and he comes to attack them, right? They lock the door, they lock the hallway, they beat him with a stick, and they're like, what the fuck was that? You know? And they realize that this is not something that they can, you know, just ignore per se. And so they so they begin to like try and set up a plan, and Samantha's like, maybe we should build like a rope or something so we can crawl down the side of the building, because they're only on the 4th floor, so it's a fucking far way down, but it's feasible. They're not in the like 20th floor. They could still crawl down to the ground floor if need be, you know? And so they start putting together plans. There's arguing, of course, because there's always arguing in horror media. They start arguing, and Dale is like, hey, everybody, we just need to calm down, you know? I've got this J. Just take a hit of that, and it'll cool you down. And they're all fucking co-eds. They're 20. They're stupid. And they're also a little high, so they're like, why not? They all take big stonking hits of the J, except for Dale. Dale mysteriously is like, nah, you just keep passing around amongst yourselves. I got my own, you know. And they're all pretty high, and they're all like trying to come up with a plan, but they're also feeling a little woozy. Their heads are becoming very full with static. Yes, exactly. Dale has spiked their marijuana with some sort of newfangled drug that makes you fall asleep. They probably have those. And he's like, well, shit, man, if this thing, whatever this thing is, wants you guys, it can fucking have you, right? And he starts, like, dragging them out of the apartment, you know, room, and like into the hallway, and just like stacking them in the hallway. And he's like, all right, you know, Kevin, let's get your fucking ass out of here. And he's like, all right, I've got, you know, a chair, and I'll force him out the door with the chair, you know. But that doesn't work, because he's this weird, horrible mesh monster of flesh and death. And so he you know, rips Dale apart and starts attacking the other co-heads. And they've woken up at this point. You know, it's been a little while. They've got the adrenaline pumping, so they start running, you know, down the hallways. And they're like, we can't take the stairs. This is not a stairs situation, but we have to take the stairs. The elevator's not working. So fine, we'll take the stairs. And they start going down the stairs. There's a big fucking toilet monster chasing them. You know, all this stuff. Run. Maybe Jess, maybe one of the other ones, they get, you know, attacked and ripped apart by Henry, or not by Henry, by Kevin.
Oh no.
And then we end with them. They've gotten to the 1st floor. Everything's okay. As soon as they leave the apartment building, as soon as they get out the front door, it stops being animated, you know? It becomes live action again. And they're like,
nice.
We need to call someone. You know, like, they go up to the police, or they go up to a payphone, they call the police. You know, they don't leave their names because, or actually no, they do leave their names, because they're like, we didn't do the drugs. Also, our friends are dead, so that's probably more important than us going to jail for drugs. And so they, you know, do all that stuff. They wait for the police. Police show up. They, you know, escort them back in to the building to show them where everything's at. And it's mysterious, because once they're escorted back in the building by the police, nothing's animated again. The halls are live action now. You know, the stairway is live action. So they take them all up, and you get in to Dale's apartment, and it's empty. You know, when they left it, it was covered in gore and blood and death. And now it's empty. Dale's not even there. It's an empty apartment with nothing on the walls, nothing at all. And they're like, huh. And they're, you know, left by the police, because there's nothing, for them to do. They figured that these kids just got a little drunk or a little scared, and they, made a phone call. And the episode ends with Samantha and Henry, who, by the way, they weren't friends before this. They were kind of, separate. Henry was friends with Kevin, Samantha was friends with Kevin, and Henry and Jess were friends. So that's how it all happened. But Samantha and Henry are just left alone, and they go to a diner, and they have not a diner, whatever the London equivalent of a diner is, and they have a cup of coffee in silence, and they
go to a pub.
Yeah, they go to a pub and have a cup of coffee.
Or a coffee shop.
And they have...
To get a coffee, probably a coffee shop would be good.
No, but that's not nearly as dramatic as a diner.
You know what? Fuck norms, all right? They went to a diner. There's a diner in London.
Yeah, there's a
I know
diner
there isn't
now.
Any, practically. At least I didn't see any.
Yeah.
They went to a diner. It's just a diner in the middle of the fucking Piccadilly Circus.
Yeah, and they have a cup of coffee silently as the sun rises on a new day. Right? That's the end of episode 2. Right? Final episode of the season. Episode 3. An 1880s pirate ship runs aground on a weird island that is covered in extinct plants and animals. The surviving crew sets up a shelter, but soon realizes that the life on the island is not friendly, nor oblivious.
Oh.
So, it's set in the year 1880. This, kind of low rent pirate ship runs aground on this island.
Low rent,
yeah. Runs
cheap.
aground on this island, and they're like, "Whoa, this island isn't on any maps or anything. This is weird." And only 3 of the crew survive. There's lots of 3s. Only 3 of the crew survive, right? There's Richard, who is the captain.
How big's the ship? How many died?
A lot of them died. Like 28 died.
28, damn.
Yeah.
That's like more than 20.
That's definitely more than 20. But Richard, the captain, who is severely unhappy because A, he's an old school captain who believes that he should have gone down with the ship, and he's, mourning the loss of all of his men. But he still has to, he feels it's his duty as a surviving captain to take care of the 2 men that are left alive, right?
Yeah.
So he's Richard, and he's our big...
Also, he's got to return his ship, he's renting it, so...
Yeah, exactly. But he's our big, tough, manly man hero situation. Then we have Nigel, who is a scientist, and that's how they know that these plants and animals are extinct, because these are all things that, were prehistoric. These are not...
So he's like a Charles Darwin type.
Yeah, he's a Charles Darwin type evolutionary scientist, and he's like studying, maybe not specifically he's studying, ancient fauna, but he knows enough about science to know that this is ancient fauna that should not be around anymore. And he's, kind of a weenie, scientist. He's a little scaredy cat, and that's fine. And then our final character is Maxwell. He is the financier of this ship. He was a dandy boy who wanted to go on high seas adventure. And he is also an extreme coward, because, all financiers are cowards, right?
Same.
And so this is more of a Robinson Crusoe story of these 3 men. They build shelter, they find food, they find water, but occasionally we'll see a little bit of weirdness happening in the background of the series. We'll see figures, or a figure specifically, like looming in the background of their Robinson Crusoe stuff, and just keeping an eye on them. Maybe we see them like sharpening a spear or something. Like nothing too revealing about how this person looks or talks or acts, but they are there, and they are being a real weird creep. And so it's just a Robinson Crusoe style situation until one night they're just relaxing at their shelter when it all catches on fire, right? The whole place burns down. They run out, and they take what they can from the fire, and Maxwell makes sure this is very important. He makes sure to grab his locket. He has a locket that he keeps beside his bed at all times, and he makes sure to grab it, and he, puts it with all this stuff. And so this is a big scary fire moment, and we see, in the flames, maybe we just have Richard. He, goes into the fire to get something, and he sees this figure, this, silhouetted creature or man standing in the middle of the fire, and he's holding a torch, but you can't make out anything else about him. And just as Richard's about to chase after him, one of the support beams that's holding up this little shelter collapses in front of him, and so he can't get past it to chase the guy, right? And then it comes back around, the person has disappeared into the woods. And so they're like, okay, there is something definitely wrong here. There's something after us, someone or something. And they get a little heated about it, but they're like, we're still fine, right? So they go to sleep, take first watch. They wake up. Maxwell, his locket is gone, He had it, and we can show, like, a dirty, grubby hand taking it away from where he had last put it. But Maxwell's locket is gone. And this inspires all sorts of, of a fight. He gets really mad about it. He starts throwing punches, and this is the first time we've ever seen Maxwell do anything, like, even vaguely violent or even really physical. Because he's a weenie little financier boy. And so, it inspires this big fist fight, and then there's, they relax, they sit them down. Richard is able to get everything under control, and he, Maxwell explains that locket belonged to his father. It was the last picture of his mother that was ever taken, and he will never wear it. Maxwell will never wear that locket because that honor belongs to his father, but he will always keep it by his heart, because it's very important to him. All right, and then we have our three heroes. They all decide, well, we need to get the fuck out of here. This whatever's after us obviously knows where we are, so we need to get, go around the island or through the island. We need to move so that we know, it will have a harder time getting us, right? And so then we do a montage of them, like, they go through the forest, they spend the night in the forest, they build stuff, right? They build a fire, right? And it's them just, like, dealing with all these, maybe we have some... I don't want to have dinosaurs in this show, in this episode, even though it's an island trapped in the past. I want to have, like, lesser-known ancient creatures. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, dinosaurs, everybody knows fucking dinosaurs. But I want to have, like... how whales, their first, iteration of whales, they had legs, right? Or something like that. I want to have that.
Yeah, something like that. Gotcha.
A little bit weirder prehistoric animals, but, that sort of thing. And they're going around and they're just dealing with all of this. And, again, there's more vagaries in the background of this silhouetted figure. And,
yeah.
We see around his neck, he's wearing the locket. Right?
Oh.
We just see that is what's going on, And then in one day, they're like, well, we've made it pretty far throughout the island. They see in the far away, they see this smoke coming up, and they think, oh, that's fire. Where there's smoke, there's fire, and where there's fire, there's people. So we're going to be able to find civilization. We're going to be able to find somebody so we could talk to someone and maybe get off this island, right?
Yeah.
And so they get to the fire, and they realize that this fire is the fire that they built last night. Like, this is a fire that they built. This is not a fire that they had, this is not a new fire that somebody else built. This is a fire that they built days ago.
Yeah.
And it somehow got lit again and moved to the other side of the island. So they start, questioning everything. And they decide, well, we're going to go to sleep, We're going to go to sleep on this island. Or,
perfect time.
Like, with this fire because it's the middle of the night, and what are we going to do, So Richard takes first watch, as usual, because he's the big hero. Nigel takes second watch, and on Nigel's watch, he gets his throat slit by this mysterious woodsman, right?
Damn, Nigel. Didn't really do a good job watching, did you?
No, he sucks. And Richard wakes up, and he has this, dramatic fight with this silhouetted figure, right? And knocks him down, and he falls into the fire, or next to the fire, and we see his face is illuminated for the first time. We see that it's Maxwell. The mysterious figure.
Not Maxwell.
The figure who's been chasing them this whole time is Maxwell, who has also been being chased this whole time. So it's like, what the? And just as, he's trying to figure it out, the cave dweller Maxwell, let's just call him cave dweller Maxwell, stabs him in the stomach, right? And escapes. And, Richard wakes up Maxwell and says, I don't know what's going on, but you need to figure it out. I'm dying, He ran that way. Go after him. And Maxwell kind of, this is his, big arc moment where he turns from a cowardly little bitch into a manly hero, right? So he takes his spear.
Manly hero.
And he chases after. And he delves into this cave and finds Maxwell himself. He finds himself, and he sees that the cave's walls are all lined with this locket. The same locket, over and over and over again. Hundreds of them. And it's, because they're 1880s people, it's kind of hard for them to figure it out. But Maxwell is able to put it together that this island has been trapped in time, in a time loop. And that they've been crashing on this island hundreds of times for thousands of years. They've been crashing onto this island and burning and building shelters and fighting and surviving, right? And every single time, Maxwell has lost it and gone on a killing spree, or Maxwell has survived the previous, time and watched them again as they crash, and he's decided to start killing them just because, he's nuts. And so he's, been collecting all of these lockets and everything. And just as Maxwell, figures it out, the cave dweller Maxwell attacks him, jumps at him with a knife. Maxwell throws him over him, stabs him in the throat, right? Kills him. Kills cave dweller Maxwell. And then Maxwell, the regular one, it's like, well, what do I do now? And then we see a couple of, in silhouette, we see a couple of months pass as his fingernails grow longer into, these sharper, edges, and his hair gets all scraggly, and his mind starts to leave him. And he wears the necklace. He wears the locket. And just as the episode's ending, he's looking out onto a brand new day and seeing the ship crashing into the island. And that's how the episode ends. So yeah, that's...
Wow.
So, time loop.
That's cool.
You didn't think time loop, did you?
The watch, I felt it was there's going to be some sort of a time element because you kept mentioning the watch. Mm-hmm. But, I wouldn't have thought about that if I was watching it.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't be like, the watch, hey, look at the watch, man.
It's important.
There's the watch, it's there, hey, ooh.
Yeah.
It would just be a subtle thing.
Yeah. But, that's the show. Hope in the rear view.
Hope in the rear view.
Well, if you liked what you heard here and you want to hear more, please give us a like, a follow, subscribe.
No, I'm just kidding. I did.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad Jake liked it. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog, tell your cat, tell your fish if your fish is a podcast fan.
My fishes.
I've never had a fish, so I don't know what they're like, but
they're like fish, kind of.
I feel like they would think they're better than me.
Kind of like chicken.
Because I can't.
But more swimmy.
I can't breathe underwater, and they can, so I feel like they would think they're better than me, which I would not
have. You tried?
But yeah, fish are good, and so is the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. So thank you all for listening, and have a good week. Stay safe out there, and remember, the John Constantine sequel was our idea, and we deserve to have 10% of the merchandising rights.
Yeah.
At least.
I don't know if we mentioned that in the previous podcast. I might have cut that out. I don't remember. But we definitely did mention it.
We definitely came up with it.
I have the raw files to prove it.
Yeah, he does. And I have the memories. Some would call the memory the raw files of the human animal.
Yep, they stole it right from Charlie's memory bank.
Yep. They're going to have so many weird
Damn you,
ideas.
Warner Brothers.
All right, goodbye. And remember, wash behind your ears, and Warner Brothers is evil.
Okay.
Bye.
Unless they want to buy a show.
Unless they want to buy the show, then they're not evil. Then whoever their competitor is evil. Disney is evil. Disney's also evil. Unless they want to buy a show, then they're great.
Then they're great.
Yeah.
We don't sell out here until we do.
Until there's money.
We're not sellouts until there's money. Yep.
Goodbye.
I'd wear that shirt.
Yeah.
I'm not a sellout
Until you offer me money.
Until there's money.
Me too. I would wear that shirt. That should be part of our merch.